In this video, I'll be discussing the importance of scaling in the context of 3D modeling as well as modular assets. So you can see here that I've got a couple of very basic modular walls that I've created as well as some that I've imported. And you see that I've got this sort of cuboid here as well. This is my scale reference. Now, when we're creating worlds in Unity or creating 3D models in Blender, we're working in a void. We don't have any reference points to be able to say, okay, how big or small is something? So if you're trying to do things to say, for example, like a real world scale, how would you know? Like, how do you know that the wall is uh, 2 meters high or 4 meters high? How do you know that it's in relation to an average sort of like 5'11" person or 6 foot person? Well, we need to add those scalings into Blender by creating just like little reference points, like say for example my little scale cube here. He's actually 1.8 meters high, which is approximately 6 foot. So if I move him towards this doorway here, if I zoom in, you can see that he's almost hitting the top of that doorway, which might not seem very realistic. And if this was like an environment, like the roof is very small, so this wall wouldn't really work if this was going to be like a house, for instance. If I move this person over here, this looks a little bit more natural. I mean, he is uh, clipping into the floor a little bit, but like, say for example, that should be fine. I should put that to 1, 0, actually. There we go. There we go. Right. You can see now that, okay, this looks a little bit more natural. The wall's relatively high. He's not going to just accidentally jump and just break his head on the ceiling. This looks correct. So it's always important to have something there as a frame of reference to go with. If you're going for like say like a chibi, or if you're going for exaggerated scaling, like in say like Little Nightmares, for instance, then you still need that reference point to help with when you're creating your 3D models. Now, looking at these models, can anyone guess like uh, how long or tall they are? You wouldn't really know unless you knew what the scaling was when you created it, or even if you knew what these grid squares even mean. We can actually in Blender be able to figure out the the size and scale of objects by actually using the grid. So I know that this floor here is actually 4 meters by 4 meters. How do I know that? Well, it's because by default, everything in Blender is set to meters, and the grid is actually set up so that each of these squares is 1 meter. So I know, okay, this is 4 meters by 4 meters. If I look at this here, I know this is 2 meters by, if I go look into here, this is 2 meters high. Now, you can actually change the grid sizes in order for you to kind of get sort of those sort of smaller incremental movements. So as long as you're in object mode and you go to overlays, you click this here, you'll see that we have guides, so we have scale. So by default, scale 1 is 1 meter. So if I change this to 0.5, just have a look at the squares. You see now that they've actually changed, they've actually gotten smaller. You'll see now that uh, this is these squares here have changed to 50 centimeters. So this is 50, 50, that's 1 meter, 2 meters, 3 meters, and 4 meters. If I was to change it again to say, let's put 0.1, you'll see now that these little small squares here are now 10 centimeters. So if I go, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 1 meter. And you might notice, well, it's very subtle, but if I just zoom back a little bit, you'll see that there are these smaller squares here with sort of like a very faint gray, and there's these more sort of more pronounced gray lines here. So you actually do have like two types of squares when you change the scaling. So these bigger ones are still 1 meter, but then you have the smaller ones inside it. So that's basically the 10 centimeters that we set up. You don't really see it here, for instance. This is more like 4 meters, but like when you get to the smaller scaling, you do actually see it. It's like 0.1. Again, you kind of see like, yeah, that's being 1 meter. You might have noticed as well, like anytime you've changed into the different axes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just isolate this for a second. So right now I'm in just the perspective view. Scaling is to 1. So again, this is 1 meter, 1 meter. But if I look into, say, the x-axis and zoom in, you'll see now that it's actually changed. So the grid size is actually changed based on the axis as well. So again, this is like, I think this is 10 centimeters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. So these are all in 10 centimeter increments. Then if I look it into the Z as well, so the grid actually changes. So if I zoom out again, you can see like there's the 1 meter one. If I zoom in around here, you'll get like so like your 10 centimeters. Actually, if I keep zooming in, it kind of gets even smaller as well. So the grid size actually kind of adapts the more you zoom in. Now, in terms of modular assets, when we're creating modular assets, we always want to make sure that we are creating them in set increments, or like at the very least, they need to be appropriately scaled in order for them to align correctly, as well as to provide you with enough variations to create buildings or interiors that aren't just like a square box. You can have a bit of variation in corners, etc., that you can kind of create sort of unique and varied layouts. So, for instance, right now I have here are these 2 meter uh, long walls, and I've got like say this little bit hard to see, this little bit here, which is just like a pillar that kind of like breaks it up a little bit. So it adds a bit of variation. So it's not just like 2 meter long walls, but I don't really have much to play with. I just have these assets, which means like if I was to create like a room, for instance, I'm just limited to these sort of 2 meter by 2 meter walls. I can create like, yes, like a big square, but there's not really much variation that I can really add there. Whereas say with these ones here, I have this 4 meter long wall, but then I also have a 2 meter long wall and also this 1 meter corner piece as well. So I can actually create sort of different variations of a room based on just these 3 pieces alone. I could maybe make a room, sorry, and then maybe have like a small little storage area that's maybe like a few meters uh, of depth thanks to using these pieces here. I couldn't make like a little storage area with just this here. It would mean having to make the room even bigger, and that wouldn't really be realistic essentially. If we have a look at say something like this, for instance, this sort of medieval modular pack here, you can see that there are many different variations of walls here, and even ceiling pieces as well. So you can see here, this is probably like 2.5 meters, nearly 3 meters long here. But then you have this piece here, which is about, just looking at it, about 1 meter, maybe like half a meter there. All these sort of different sizes help with creating various different pieces. So this is the actual place that I found this from. So if I go back to if I look here, you can see that you can see uh, again with these walls, this is like 120 centimeters by 250 centimeters. So again, you've got so many different variations that allow you to create all these sort of great and wonderful pieces. Again, another great examples of modular assetting. You have various different sizes of pieces that can help you create something like this. All of these are various different uh, wall pieces of different lengths. Heights are usually kind of consistent, but again, you might have some different variations in heights there. But they all are used to create this environment. So it's always important to be consistent with your scaling.